Even the people who are rich, when they leave everything behind, right? We can't take anything with us. So what is this all about? And then you come across like, okay, people accumulate wealth for their children and their future generation. And then I ask myself a question: do they not have confidence on their children? Because if you did it from scratch, they will do it too.
Welcome to the Richer Soul podcast, where we share how to live in harmony across health, wealth, time, relationships, and spirituality. How do you bring them all together to live your ultimate life? The best thing is, we've got nothing to sell, just great advice from people who've succeeded and lived that dream. Welcome to Richer Soul, Pratiqk Jaani. It's great to have you join us today.
Thank you, Rocky. Appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be here.
And I'm excited to learn from you today. We always like to start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your family and school teach you about money?
A lot, and most of it wasn't directly. It was all, the talks happening around you, which you just absorb and, start believing that as reality. So my parents were teacher, come from a Brahmin family. So very little importance was given to money. Instead, the knowledge and experience and, those type of things were kind of enforced more over us. And they say, money is only good if you work hard and work ethically, and there is no shortcut about money. Money doesn't grow on trees. This is the basic thing. Like, you might just sleep hungry, but you don't take money which doesn't belong to you or is not ethically earned. So these were really strong forms of like money patterns were installed when I was growing up. But on the other side, we see rich people out there. In school we have kids who come and their parents are quite rich, and then when we talk about them and they say, oh yeah, because they have this business, but business has so many risks and only few people can do business. Job is the best thing because every 30th of the month you get your paycheck, so you don't have to worry about anything. And business, you can have sleepless nights sometimes if the economy is not doing well. So all sorts of things. So every possible thing to fit me into the 9 to 5 structure.
Your paycheck is guaranteed until you're let go.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then it's no longer guaranteed.
Exactly. And my personal experience, to get out of that fear of, getting out of that comfort, I would say, of 9 to 5. From the point I decided that I want to have my own business, and when I actually started my business, it took me 8 years. And when I decided, and I was like, I could have done this 8 years ago. What was that really stopping me from having my own business? But I think I've got the answers later on, which is that everyone would like you to be there. So whoever you talk to that you want to leave your job and start your business, because they are also conditioned to do 9 to 5. So all they're going to show is where you could possibly go wrong instead of where, how you can actually excel in the business. So I think your group is quite important, but I see things positively. Every time they were stopping me and I was stopped is because I wasn't ready. But when I was ready, they still stopped me, but I just went against everybody and I started it. And, in 3 to 4 months time, they all accepted that, yeah, you did the right thing. And that's what they do. They stop you. And if you're unstoppable, they will just go. I know if I had failed, then yeah, the scenario would have been different. But the fact that I succeeded, they praised me for what I achieved with what they couldn't achieve. So it was quite interesting.
I'm surprised they did it that quickly.
Yeah.
What was your first business?
So I was working in an accountancy firm. I worked for about 8-9 years in 3 different firms, and the last 2 firms I was working as a specialist tax advisor. So my job was to kind of advise on tax planning. And around that time, research and development tax credits were really, really popular in UK. So I was specialized in that. So my first business was to help the startup and innovative businesses to get the tax credit from the HMRC, the tax office. So that's what I did. So I worked with lots of startups, and that's where I kind of learned more about their mindsets than the money, about, their mindset for the money. And my journey started around that. So when I started my business, I kind of learned something which I didn't know those 8 years ago. But then I realized that, 21-year-old guys having a startup raise £1 million investment. And I'm like, how did you do that? And then I was talking to them, meeting them, and slowly, they were changing my patterns. They were changing what was installed in my childhood without me realizing it. And then I'm like, yeah, this is something I can do, you know? So I just started that.
What did you see as the difference in the pattern that they had versus what you had grown up with?
I think they knew certain things from their childhood because they came from different country or different backgrounds. For them, money was not the concern of doing the business. They were more concerned about the challenges the actual product would have to go to the final stage. They didn't see money as a scarcity, I would say. They didn't do the business because they wanted to earn more money. They did business because they had a vision of delivering something which was not there in the market. And hence, they were not operating from scarcity. I'll give you my example. When I started my business, I was also doing accounting work. And when I left my job, my business income was not as much as my paycheck. So I knew that my 3-4 months are going to be struggle. So I was kind of focusing on getting the leads and give them quotations and just make them clients quickly so I can start getting my monthly retainer. So every time I was preparing the quotation where I was looking at the numbers I'm going to get, those people didn't become my client. But when I learned about the business and I knew my expertise could really add value to it, and I was so excited about the project client was doing, my focus wasn't in what I was going to make. Instead, my focus was what I'm going to do for them. Every single one of them became my client. So I realized that when I was preparing the quotation and sending it to client, my energy was about, that neediness, that desperateness, because I had to pay bills. It just made it worse. But when I was relaxed. And I didn't know at that time. It's only 4 years ago when I certified as a hypnotherapist and I learned in practical terms with experience how the patterns were built through my childhood. I kind of got the answers of every single thing I've been through and what shaped, what triggered what in my brain and how it changed my belief system. It was just incredible.
It is. When you are needy, nobody wants to do business with you. It is a turnoff. And if you don't realize that you're portraying that, then that would be the case. And so that's interesting. It sounds like you made a shift into a self-development journey at some point.
Yes. And it has a very interesting story. In 2017, I was diagnosed with tuberculosis. So until then, I was living the life the way I was taught in my childhood. So, I wake up, go to work, finish the work, come home, have dinner, spend some time with family, and go to bed. As soon as it's Sunday, 12 o'clock afternoon, I'm stressed because the next day is Monday morning. And I spent about 10 years like that. And because, the work required more time, so I was staying late. Sometimes I was doing 7 days. So then I come home. The home isn't happy because they think I only come home to sleep and eat, don't really contribute. So even, the love life was also challenged. When I was diagnosed with tuberculosis, I was 3 months in bed. I couldn't walk. I couldn't stand up. And in that moment, I had this thought like, what if I passed away? What would happen to everything that is, I think, dependent on me? And the answer was nothing. So I felt the freedom if I had passed away. And I'm like, I should be able to have this freedom while I'm alive. So the first thing I did is handed in my notice and I started my business. And I think the fear went away. So I think, I'm so much dependent on, because we were taught that, the security is lying outside. By you being certain person or by you putting more efforts, people will like you and want to keep you as your employee. And you just kind of serving. And the other person wasn't thinking like that. But it's only, the other person's personality is how we think he is. It's not how that person actually is. So I learned. And I think that's where the journey started. So I came across lots of motivational speakers and I kind of saw the different side of my conditioning. Then I got initiated with Sadhguru for inner engineering. I've been initiated for Kriya Yoga. I tried all the different techniques. I went to Peru and did the psychedelic experience as well a few years ago. And combining everything kind of took me to the point where I had that realization where without having anything externally, I felt that wholeness. I felt that completeness when I removed everything that was conditioned, not just the pain part, even the happiness. What makes us happy is also conditioned. It's not true happiness. So when I removed all of it, what I experienced that day was just the true me, who didn't want anything, who didn't need anything, who couldn't ask for anything, and who can give everything, but there is nothing to be given because I was all there is. And from that point, everything I did just went on inspired action, and I was enjoying the process of doing what I was doing rather than having to expect something in return because there is nothing I need anymore.
You mentioned a couple of different things that you did. Was one of them the key to that, or was it just kind of a path and the different things brought you different pieces and it just kind of came together?
I think it was a path. So I can't say that one particular thing got me to the realization, but I think everything was a step because I think it's been natural to me. Like if I heard something, I really get interested and I put like 24/7 into it until I master it. Once I master that, I can't go on the repeat zone because then I feel like a machine. So then I would withdraw from it and then I look for something which is more exciting. And I think that led me from one thing to the other. Then I came across some quantum studies, and then whatever I learned about spirituality, and then kind of combined that with what the quantum mechanics talks about, and everything just started to make sense. That what everything is about. Obviously, I wanted to keep the book really, really simple, with anybody can understand, and it doesn't have any spiritual language. It doesn't have any religious things. It doesn't have any scientific or therapeutic language. It is something one can talk to themselves and have go through that journey asking. I think the questions are always there, but we never notice that there is a question to ask, or we don't know whether that question existed in the first place. And this is where the book is taking. So the questions we never asked, but they were always there. And what answers do you get if you really ask those questions?
Interesting. We'll get to that momentarily. Every time you did one of these types of self-development thing, did you think like that was going to be the solution, and then you'd get through it and you learn everything and then you'd find another layer, or what was that like?
Yeah, I think I was done with it. I mean, when I started, I'm like, this is it, you know? And you practice it, you read everything they give you to read, you listen to it, you practice it. I think what really put me off, and we'll get there, how I see things differently. Everything that had a homework to it, attached to it, my system internally started rejecting it because again, I was then relying on something externally, right? So I did the 2-day inner engineering, and I was told, it's wake up for like 4 o'clock in the morning. I've got to do the first set of meditation, then second one in the afternoon, third one in the night, and you have to have empty stomach. You can't drink these 2 hours before. So there were a lot of rules around it, which was really difficult for me to adapt in my normal life. And then I just kind of came out of it. I couldn't survive. Even when I went on Kriya Yoga, I could do the morning ones, but I couldn't do the night ones because if I can't do every day, I wouldn't do any day. That's how I have been. So I was looking for something where there is no homework. Why there is a homework? Because I remember when I was studying maths and science and things. Once you understand something, you don't need to remember. You automatically memorize it, right? So all I had to do is understand the process. So these were exercises and techniques were given, but I was probably seeking the understanding, which wasn't satisfying to me. I'm not saying to everybody, because everyone is at different stage and some people can absorb everything. And I know people who are initiated for one of these practices and they've been doing it for 20 years. Now, I don't know what experiences they had after 20 years, but for me, that's how I have been naturally. So I only blame my nature that if something doesn't give me any difference in the 6 months time, I would withdraw from it because then I feel like I'm wasting time and I need to look for something else.
Well, I think a lot of people look for tactics instead of understanding.
Yeah.
But again, that's probably conditioning.
Absolutely.
That leads them
Absolutely.
to that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I completely agree.
Was there anything in Peru that was kind of shifting for you, or was it just another part of the journey?
I think, see, when once you have the psychedelic, I had the San Pedro, which they call it is the grandfather energy. And they show you the future, and you go to altered state of consciousness. And I had other three colleagues, were my friends, and we had this private shaman, and their experience lasted about 4 to 6 hours. Mine lasted for about 18 hours, and the shaman was scared to a point like this guy is not going to come back, because I've been through a lot of emotional pain, and in order to clean it, in order to release it, I went to this loop somewhere. It's the same scene is repeating, and I couldn't get out of it until the 18th hour. And the shaman said that because you had a lot of damage inside due to the emotional pain, because I'm number 7, so it's more emotional, quite intuitive. But I get attached with people emotionally. I don't think practically. So I do things for people because there is an emotional connection. So I think there was a series of hurts emotionally, which was repairing, and I could feel the shift. But then what I also, because I had two different doses on the separate days, also so what is the truth? Who am I? And I can't put words to it, but I felt that complete darkness, and I could feel that is me. But whatever I say, I can't prove. That's the shift I had. And the second time I had a week later, all I could see was everything was vibration and energy, and it's just extension of myself. That's what I saw. I think it's also important what you see, how you interpret it, because it changes again your belief system and your conditioning. But I parked it there. I came back. It took me about 2-3 months just to integrate, because I keep going back to those memories and what it was and trying to interpret and how do I apply. I think my biggest quality or nature or instinct is, if I learn something, my next question is, how do I apply in my day-to-day life? And then so that's probably the thing which made me a really good tax expert, because when I read about a law, I straight away think, which client I can apply these and save them tax. And then my brain will pull out a list of those clients and I'll be contacting them. So I think that nature of connecting those dots or application of the knowledge is the key. Otherwise, knowledge is just, is as good as being in a book. So that had a shift, but I would not give all the credit to it.
You said you were a number 7. What were you referring to with that?
The numerology side, because part of my journey, everything I've been through, sound healing, numerology, astrology, multiple things. So they say number 7 is a Ketu in Indian language, which means it doesn't have a head. It only has the body below the head, which means it can't see, it can't think, it acts from out of emotions. And I kind of resonate with that yes, I do take actions from emotions. I've taken so much financial loss just because I wanted to feel good emotionally. I'm not saying whether it was the right thing or wrong thing, but that's how I have normally acted when I didn't have the realization which I have now.
Interesting. And all of this, I'm assuming, has led to you writing the book. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So tell us, what was it after learning all of this that inspired you to write the book? And the book is called Dhrasti, the Perception?
Yes. Dhrasti means, it's Indian word. Dhrasti means how we see, but it's not how we see. It's which standpoint we are seeing our life. I had no plan for writing a book, but because I've been through so many different things and I had so much knowledge, I share it with people, whoever I meet, whether it's my clients, my friends, my team. And one of my manager in India, I had a team in India for my accounting work. And she goes one day, Pratiqk, you know so many things. I think you should write a book. And that kind of planted a seed in my head. But I didn't know what to write because I know so many things. So I don't know what exactly I should write to create a book. If you ask me a question, I can answer. But I don't know what are the common questions. And then one day, I was meditating, this word popped in my head called Dhrasti. And I was like, this is it. This is the title. And I started writing. So, as I started to write, to be honest, when I started writing, I didn't know where it's going to lead to or what will be the conclusion part of the book. But I think I was just meditating. I feel this book isn't something I have written. I think the book is a calling which wanted me to write, whether we call it a universal force or God or whatever. I'm just a medium to put this message in a very simple form without any labels, and for people to reach, the people who are seeking, they can have it. So I take zero credit for writing this book because I was guided to write what I have written in there.
Do you know who guided you?
No, and it doesn't matter.
That's perfectly fine.
We
I'm just
have a
asking
phrase
you.
like we eat mango, like why are you counting the trees? That there is a phrase like.
Yes.
So I'm kind of more into like what's the message about. It doesn't matter. I mean, when I'm meditating, I get lots of ideas because I don't know whether I'm tuning. I mean, I see on YouTube and they use this language of these downloads and theta frequency, and I mean I understand it. But even if you didn't name those things, they were still happening. Label. I think I just remember now. When you asked me like what the psychedelic experience in Peru did to me, it did one profound thing. I stopped labeling things. I stopped labeling this is good or bad. I stopped labeling this is nice and this is not nice. I started seeing things as they are. So, because good and bad is a perception, because something can be good for one and the bad for the other. So, there is no good or bad. It's just how it is, now how you take it. So, I think delabeling things was a really good exercise since I came back and I started writing the book. I think.
You said, go ahead.
No, sorry, it's okay. Yes, we went now.
You said throughout the book, it's a book of questions.
Yes.
So what are some of the guiding, like what kind of questions are being asked and where is it helping us to go?
It starts with our daily routine. Like I said, I used to wake up every morning, go to work and work for 30 days for a paycheck, come back, you plan your holidays, you talk to people. But there is still something you always wanted, and we never know that we are always wanting. So we kind of trying to define with like we want more money, or we want new car, or we change car and kind of upgrade to a premium car, or we get promoted. So we see things in these type of different type of titles, but they didn't last long. 10 years ago, I had a dream of having a premium car. So I worked towards it. And the day I bought it, I wanted to make sure it's always clean. So I clean it twice a day and things like that. 2 months down the line, it had bird poop over it and there is like a tissues on the floor, and it didn't matter to me. For something I worked so hard and for so long, when I have it, it doesn't matter to me. Now I want something different or something else or something more premium. Where does it end? And I always ask this question, like, even the people who are rich, when they leave everything behind, right? We can't take anything with us. So what is this all about? And then you come across like, okay, people accumulate wealth for their children and their future generation. And then I ask myself a question, do they not have confidence on their children? Because if you did it from scratch, they will do it too. Just teach them how to do it, right? How to make money, how to survive. So you don't give someone food, you just teach them how to cook. So even if you're not around, they can still help themselves. So why people don't do that? I've seen people living.
Do it, and we tell people to do it. Like truly, that is the best gift you can give your children, is learning how to manage money. And it's part of the reason we asked that first question that we started with is because most people haven't been taught. And they should be taught. They go to school for all this time for the sole purpose of making money, and yet no one taught them how to manage money. And we put all these emotions around money that don't need to be there. When you teach your children how to manage money and how to be able to be self-sufficient, the game changes. And we actually had my daughter on, that was years ago, back in episode 72, and we went through how we did a lot of these types of things. But it's not normal.
I think absolutely. I mean, I was talking to someone the other day, like the school doesn't teach two things, right? One, it doesn't teach anything about money. And two, it doesn't teach anything about business, like the academic school. They only teach you.
But you know what else it doesn't teach?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't teach how to figure out what you truly want.
True.
And how
I remember when I was
question yourself.
Absolutely. And I think I don't blame them because they don't know, because they also learned and they were also conditioned the same thing from their surroundings when they were growing up. So it is coming from the past.
It's only coming from a couple hundred years in the past. You go
Yeah,
back further than that, and it was different. But you're in London. If you go to Oxford, they teach you how to ask questions and how to think, I would think.
I have no idea because I
Okay.
studied in India.
Yeah.
But I do know one thing that nobody. So I had this conversation with a friend of mine, and he said, we are only taught from the childhood. Like in India, there was a time where everyone was becoming engineers. Then there was a time everyone wanted to be doctors, and nobody talks about have your own business unless the parents already have a family business which they expect their children to carry on, but it's mandatory for them to run the same business. They didn't have a freedom, or they probably still don't have freedom to have something on their own, what they like and what their interest is, right? And the school teaches you, they only tell you one thing, like if you don't get good marks, you're not going to get good job. So after doing 100 out of 100, all you're going to really get is a better job. And then I was thinking, but then I'm like, okay, what is the positive of this? Okay. I'm like, okay,
Not
so if you did,
necessarily, by the way.
I agree. And I said, the school, I had to come up with something positive in that conversation. So I said, if you finish schooling, that gives you kind of a minimum guaranteed failure, right? So if you did nothing, you may not able to earn enough, because I think we're talking about a country. I mean, that's a slightly different conversations where there was no education in the first place. So for them to have something systemized, it just to give people a lot more understanding. I feel if person has a potential, they're gonna do the business regardless. I know we had like last benchers in my class, and they do really well in business because they knew it. Like they're not gonna study and they're not gonna work for someone, and they are really successful today.
It is. I'm always trying to figure out, is that a learned behavior or is that an innate behavior that didn't get covered up? What is it that drives those behaviors?
So I think I'm going to answer this in two ways. Number one comes from my hypnotherapy training. So they say there are four roles in a family. Like one is a carer. So when you have siblings, because as a children we want attention, and there are one of the four things we will pick in order to grab parents' attention. So the first one is a carer. So he looks after everyone. He listens to the parents and say, "Can you go and get the milk?" And he will run and do it because he wants that attention. The second one was intelligent. So they are smart in studies and very intelligent intellectual questions. So they work hard for knowledge and get the parents' attention. The third one was a Sikh. So he's always like, I hurt, my stomach hurts or this hurts, and the mama will come and like, okay, I'll do the massage. So they get the attention like that. So normally the last sibling would be the rebellious. So because he has no other role to be, because all the other roles are taken, he would become rebellious. And I think if somebody is rebellious, they always try to do what is against of what is taught to them, right? And I think they are the people who would thrive in business because they have a habit. They learned to react complete opposite of what told to them. So in school, they said, okay, if you do 100 out of 100, you get a good job. They'll be like, I don't want to work. I think that's one way of looking at it. The second one, from the tribe perspective, I think this is only what I've heard and read about how we were evolved. So there were like group of humans, and there was one person who would be leading the group, who look after. Ultimately, they kind of became the king, or we call it alpha male. So they got more respect, and then the alpha male would have the right hand, left hand, and the team. And so because they got more respect and more validation, in current time, that's what we chase through status. So your job title is somewhere fulfilling that need to be validated. And that is why what will people say matters to us, because we want to be validated by the society. I think that's where it comes from.
Interesting. Early on, you made a comment about what makes us happy. And so What does make us happy?
An absence of unhappiness. Because I think happiness and sadness are one, or is like a light and darkness. And to me, my experience is they're both conditioned. Because I'll give an example. 1-year-old boy sitting on a sofa and suddenly somebody passed away in front of him. He would have no reaction to it. But then everyone else is crying and, they're just mourning for the death. At the same time, if the father wins $1 million lottery and he comes home with to celebrate, it doesn't matter to that 1-year-old boy because he doesn't know, he's not been conditioned. But as he grows, he learns what is happening externally, how people are reacting to that event, and we learn to copy. And why we copy? Because we want that belonging. We want to show that we belong. We're just like you. And I think that's how it develops, what we call happy and what we call not happy. So we have an identity of an ideal life through our conditioning that, okay, if this event takes place, they are happy moments because that's what we want. But what we want is also conditioned because we didn't know what we wanted. I mean, when we were born, we didn't know what I wanted to eat. It was done by others. So we didn't want anything. So we were installed the expectations. We were installed what we should expect in life. What is life? How is life? We knew nothing about it. It is all learned.
It is. And it's funny because just the other day, someone asked this same question again. They're like, and it was a man. And I think dads tend to do this more. What age or what part of their growing cycle should I be more present? Meaning, should I be there more when they're very young? Or should I be there more when they're in middle school? Or should I be there more when they're in high school? Like, when is my presence most important? And I looked at him, I said, it's like building a house. You cannot build the foundation and it'll probably fall over. You cannot
Absolutely.
build the framing, in which case you got a hole in the ground, or
Absolutely.
you cannot do the finish work.
Yeah.
I said, every stage is important. They all serve a purpose. And if you don't put them all together, then your house is not built correctly. And so I think you need to be there at every stage.
Absolutely. According to my hypnotherapy courses, they say from the point the child is born until the age of 12 are extremely, extremely crucial for the development or conditioning of that child. After 12 years, he learns to identify himself that this is me. He already has the first version of system ready. Then when they're exploring, it's an automatic process. So if you see something which contradicts what you believe, then the brain will automatically weigh which is more acceptable, and it kind of repeats it. And that's why, as a child, one could be very different personality than when they're 25, because their system can analyze and change that pattern themselves. But 0 to 12, as a parent, I would strongly tell all the parents or to-be parents, 0 to 12 years, what you talk around them, even though while they're sleeping in a room, because the subconscious listens to everything, right? So who meets them, how you're talking to them, how their brain is going to interpret is really, really crucial. So I think that's the main part. After 12, you let them explore and be support. Be support to whatever they want to explore. But 0 to 12 is the key.
And I agree with that. We break down 0 to 6 and 6 to 12 in different paradigms. They each have their own part. It's funny, you mentioned what they learn and what they see. And everyone has always heard you're the average of the 5 people around you. Very few parents curate the 5 people around their kids when they're gone most of the day at school or somewhere else. And then they wonder why their kid turned out like they did.
Yeah.
They didn't make sure they were surrounded with the right messages.
Yes, but I think they didn't know. I mean, a lot of people don't know. Even my parents wouldn't know how these things worked. Because I've done so many self-hypnosis, and when I go back to my childhood, there is a part in hypnotherapy where if you were hurt by one of your parents, you have the conversations with them in your, when you're in trance. And most of the time, the parents' answer is, I didn't know any better. And that's the time when my client would shift, because I did some hypnotherapy sessions to my client. Because when you know that the other person hadn't done something on purpose, your grudges or what you're holding against them would melt straight away. And that was the part of the therapy. And it literally improved their relationship, it improved their confidence and a lot of other things. But the idea is to see. Now, we are talking about how we learn. But when you're in a hypnosis, you actually experience, you go to that particular event that was the first, the first brick in the foundation which made you react in certain way. And once you learn from experience, it's just incredible. It's very profound.
It is. And I think a lot of times people don't think about what did that person experience to behave that way towards you. They only look at it, why what I do or why am I being treated that way? They don't take the step back to go, hey, wait a minute. What happened to them that they behave in such a way now? And it's an interesting thought and a way to do what you said, which is basically to reframe.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think once you start learning about your patterns and how you were conditioned, when other person reacts to you, you can actually estimate or guess. I think it's understatement of guessing. I mean, with me now, I can actually tell what this person must have, you know, been around to be or behave like this. And because I know it's not the person, it's the conditioning reacting to me, I don't react at all. And then what happens is quite surprising, because when they react out of what they felt inside, they also have expectations how you're going to react to it. But when you don't react like that, the system gets frozen because they don't know now what to do. And then they take a pause. So I tell people, like, when you shift from within, your surroundings will automatically start to shift, because you will not be feeding them what they wanted, because now you operate from a very different point from within. So before, if I remember, like, when we are driving and if somebody just cuts the corner and I have seen people swearing at them, and it's crazy. For a good half an hour, they will go on. I mean, that 1 second can literally destroy your 30 minutes, right? And when I'm driving, this is a few years ago now, I mean, I don't react. I mean, I don't even register that somebody came in, because I'm in a different zone. Like, I'm focusing on my driving, but those things don't matter to me anymore, because I'm trying to live beyond the time. Because if I'm leaving now and I'm gonna get there, it doesn't matter how long it's gonna take, because if it's a traffic, it's not in my control anyway. So whatever is in not my control, I started letting go. I mean, it happens. It's okay. If I'm late, I'm just going to apologize and just, move forward with it rather than stressing. Because if I'm stressing, it's not going to make me reach there faster. So what's the point? People look at the weather and say, oh my God, it's raining. It's awful. I'm like, you can't change it. So just embrace it. I just go out and sun is out. Oh, wow, it's sunny. If I go out, it's raining. Like, wow, it's raining. It's just lovely.
How did you get to the point where you can be at peace with all of that?
I think it just happened. I think my continuous efforts of searching for the truth, or searching for what is this all about? What is this life about? And what is everyone is running for? I tried different things. I mean, I cannot start to I can't start to list the amount of information I've consumed and trying to apply it to my day-to-day life. But I think combination of everything just clicked. Like you're learning the bicycle in the childhood, and all you had to do is learn how to balance. So it could take you a week or 6 months, but it doesn't really take that long. It's that moment when you learned and you didn't fail. And once you learn to balance, you can't fall again, right? You could fall before learning, but I can't answer like how long did it take me to learn the bicycle. I don't know, because it was that moment when it actually happened. So I think combination of all of this, I think if I be a little bit precise about when it happened, is when I let go of it. So I'm like, you know what? Just forget about it. I think I surrendered. I surrendered everything. So I remember there was one day. I mean, I don't know what was the different distance between when I did this, when I started doing that, when I was meditating, and when I actually realized that experience. But I sat down and like, look, I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but I know that nothing happens what I want, and whatever happens without my expectations has always been wonderful. So from this point, I drop everything. So use me to take me wherever I have to, do whatever I need to, just complete surrender. And I started living throughout the day. It's not like, you do the affirmations and you do visualizations. And I tried all that for years and none of that worked. And I surrendered. The moment I surrendered, I think I had that realization. I've listened to Osho quite a lot, and years ago. And I feel like you can't challenge him on logic, because what he says, everything makes sense and you have to accept it, what he says. So I think combination of everything I've heard, everything I've listened, everything I've read, everything I've practiced got me to where I am.
Interesting. And I guess, yeah, it's that moment when everything clicks. Now, the way that it clicks is reps and sets. So you just continue to just catch yourself and go, oh, I didn't need to do that. That's not important. Is there a certain kind of rep and set that helps you, or is it just?
No, I think I just started following my instinct. So, people, I mean, these days, you see a lot of content on healthy food or yoga and why they're important. And I was telling something the other day, like before I learned something, I was absolutely fine. But the moment I saw what I was eating and it was labeled as not good food or not healthy food, my brain started interpreting that I'm not eating right food, and it then had consequences to it, right? But until I knew it, it was all fine. But I think when I had the realization, the beautiful thing happened was this, that everything I did, I could actually see what I was actually doing, what I was actually trying to achieve, and why it didn't work. I could analyze those things because now I know. It's like if I describe you a place that you go there, so your brain is going to imagine something based on how I describe it. But when you actually go there, it's going to be different. However, you will be able to tell when I said like a red door, but you might have a different design in your mind. But when you go there, Pratiqk meant this red door, Pratiqk meant that house, So when I was following the techniques, I was imagining where I would land when I do these practices. But I wasn't landing anywhere. But when I had the realization, all those practices started to make sense. And I also realized why I was not able to realize what I was realizing now. So I think everything was part of the journey. So there wasn't something was good or bad. Everything was step for me to get where I am.
Interesting. So in the book, there's lots of questions. What else will people learn, or what else will they take away from it?
So the book takes you to a journey where you will see that everything they believed about life is conditioning. And it will take you to the part where you will experience something that if you remove everything that is conditioned, what is left? And when you become aware of that part within you, you feel that wholeness, you feel that completeness, that abundance. And anything you do from that point onwards, you know that there is nothing there to chase externally because you are complete on your own. Which means that everything you do, that's where you get your purpose. Like the book became my purpose. I wasn't doing this to sell million copies or not to make a commercial success. The purpose of me is the message is there. It needs to reach out to as many people as possible, whoever is in need or whoever is in search for this information. Just like I came across the information when I was going through my journey, like certain books I read, they were written before I was born, but they came to me when I was ready and I needed that information. So the purpose is to put this book out there, and that's it. I enjoyed writing the book and the process of getting the book out, and I have no expectations because whatever are my needs are automatically fulfilled, which is only two things, right? The food I eat, which I need to survive, like for my body, and the sleep. So I have a bed and I sleep, and that's all I really need. Anything else is out of conditioning.
You made a comment that when you take away all the conditioning, you're left with what is kind of left. Is everyone left with the same thing, or is everyone left with their own thing?
Surprisingly, it's the same thing. And I've tried this with a number of people, and everyone felt identical. It was fascinating. So what makes us different is our conditioning. Because if you think about it, we all have two eyes, one nose, two ears. Our hardware is the same, right? So the software is what we call conditioning. So when you remove the conditioning, let's take a phone example, right? Like iPhone comes identical in every box. But if people use the phones and after 1 year or 6 months, if you check their phones, you feel, if you hold someone else's iPhone, you can tell this is not your phone. And that's because the way it's been used, it has changed. So it is still the same iPhone, which came out of the same box as yours. But it's different because how it's been operated. So I think similar thing can apply to us. We were all born same, mostly all of us. But then what defines us or what makes us separate or different to each other is our conditioning.
Interesting. You've worked with a lot of people. What has been the most surprising thing in working with people?
The surprising thing was, which was kind of, there were two things, I think. One, everyone was going through conditioning, because when I became hypnotherapist, I didn't have this realization, right? So at that point, it helped me on love and relationships. It helped me on financial abundance to a certain degree. But mostly I help people on anger or self-esteem and confidence and stress and anxiety. I also help people on weight loss. And what I discovered within, when I was giving these sessions is that everything is being conditioned. So my cumulative knowledge and understanding is like, okay, we were all born blank slate, right? And then people come to us or our surrounding will start marking what was marked on their slate when they were born. So if I then had to remove all of it, what is left? And then they're all the same slates from the same factory, right? And I'm like, okay, so now this is what it is. And I think the beautiful thing which I've seen is that if someone was holding something in them and the moment it shifts, they break in with tears, and it's how they're releasing their emotions. I mean, I didn't know that our physical illness come from emotional pain. The emotions, we could not express it out. They accumulate and they become a disease 99% of the time. I didn't know that. And then I realized that when I had the tuberculosis, I had the worst emotional time back in those days. And that's what caused the tuberculosis. I mean, I could literally apply that information to my own experience, and it blew my mind away. Like, this is incredible. But I was taking that as a therapy to start with. But then because it got combined with my other knowledge and other information, and somehow I learned to ride the bicycle.
Do you notice that most people will express their emotions freely, or are we also conditioned in how we express our emotions?
We are 100% conditioned to express our emotions because, generally, I think we don't share we are okay to express our happy emotions, right? We put it on social media and we shout out loud, we do parties of the success. But when it's failure, we fear of being judged. We fear people will criticize our actions, and we feel that shame, and hence we try and hide it because we don't want people to see the way they are. We don't want people to change the way they are seeing us. And I think it's all about understanding. Once you understand, I think you will be able to come out. Like, one can ask me any question and I'm happy to openly answer the truth. I have nothing that I would like to hide. There is nothing. I mean, if anything, any part of my journey has helped someone, I'm happy to do that.
And a lot of people play agendas and politics and everything else. It's draining. I have no time for that. It's amazing, though, that is how the game is played. And until you're outside of it, you just don't realize how pervasive it is.
I completely agree. And to be honest, it's been a long time that I stopped watching news. I stopped watching certain things. And if you look at my YouTube feed or Instagram feed, it's something really, really, I mean, to me, okay, about the subject, about the truth. The information I get is more relevant to me. I mean, I understand this algorithm, but if something happened, like politically or something, I don't get to know from my phone or my social media. It's someone who follows would come and tell me, like, Pratik, did you hear that? I'm like, no, because it's for me, to be honest, I'm not being harsh here, but there are a lot of news which are beyond my control, and I don't have any power over it, right? So by listening to it, I can't change anything, but then it disturbs my energies and my vibrations. Yes, if there is something I can do, I would be more than happy to go and do it. But there are a lot of things which are beyond our control, and we fill up our brain with lots of things which might feel interesting, but they don't take us anywhere. So I
It's
give
an
this
in-
example, like if you're making tea, all you need is tea, milk, and sugar, right? So if somebody comes with the turmeric, you stop them. If somebody comes with chili, you stop them because what you're making is tea, and the brain is that. So if you have a purpose, you have your ingredients. So if anybody comes with anything which is not needed, you got to block it. Otherwise, you're going to ruin your dish.
there is that. It's amazing how much of life we end up blocking.
I completely agree. It's not easy, but I think, see, what I've learned is nothing is magic and nothing happens overnight, right? It's a process. So what happens is when you start focusing on what you want, what you don't want automatically starts disappearing. So people I used to hang out with 5 years ago are no longer in my touch, and I didn't block them. I only welcome who I wanted to learn from. So when you start doing that, because it's like, this is a really, really old and popular phrase, like if you close your eyes and say, don't think of a pink elephant, that's what you're going to see, right? So it's not about blocking someone, it's about occupying yourself with what adds more value to your purpose and your journey. So everything else will automatically filtered out.
That makes a lot of sense. What's one truth about success you wish more people understood?
I would like them to ask themselves a question: what is their definition of success, where they learned it from, and whether they still agree themselves. Not from learned definition, their own definition.
And you have to take the time to ask yourself and think through and see what that really is.
Absolutely. And then go for it.
I'm with you. What did you learn later in life that you wish you would have learned sooner?
If you asked me this question 5 years ago, my answer would have been different. But I think everything happens at the right time. And I think I'm just so grateful and happy everything that has taken place. But yeah, 5 years ago, if you asked me this question, I would say about money, which we started these conversations with, right? I wish I knew a lot of things about money when I was 18 years old.
And unfortunately, as we talked about, they don't teach that in school.
Speaking
of an 18-year-old, if you were to give an 18-year-old one specific piece of wisdom, what would it be?
I think follow your passion is number one. But if the advice is about money, I think they need to invest. If I say, a lot of people say you need to invest, but I think do a course. I invest in knowledge. I've bought so many courses over the last 15 years. I see an advert on a Facebook or Instagram, and if I find it interesting, even though I know that might be the crappy course, but I would still purchase and get it. Because then out of that 5-hour course, there might be one thing that I can apply today and that can change my life. So invest in knowledge and then apply that knowledge to your day-to-day life. I think knowledge is no good unless it's applied.
And I agree with you. You actually have to take action. And that's the one thing most people don't do. Take
Absolutely.
action.
And also don't drive your decisions making money a center, because money is a fuel to do what you want to do. So yes, you need to manage it well, but not at cost of your dreams, not at cost of, you don't need to sacrifice what really is keen to you in order to get money. When people come for tax planning, I said, look, I won't make you I won't help you save tax. I want you to do what you want and see how best you can save your tax, instead of how you can save more tax, but let's sacrifice this.
And I agree with that. Too often people let the tax situation drive it instead of the outcomes and actually making money, which is hilarious. But that's a story for another day. If people would like to learn more about you and the book, how do they do that?
So the book is going to be available on Amazon. If they would like to learn more about me, my website is pratiqjaani.com. They can go there. They can, if they read the book and if they have any questions, their personal question, if they want, they can email me as well. The email address is also on the website.
Cool. We'll make sure to include that. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Rocky. It was really lovely conversations with you.
Hey, thanks for checking out the full unedited video of the Richer Soul podcast. You can get the full audio podcast with intro, outro, and a ton more details here on YouTube or whatever your favorite podcast player is. Don't forget, we've got hundreds of episodes for you to go back through, and you can also get episode information on the Richer Soul website as well. Don't forget to subscribe so you're automatically updated as to what's going on and every time we release a new episode. The first few episodes of the Richer Soul podcast actually lay out the entire framework that everything is built on over all of these years. So check them out as well. Thanks for listening.